apparently these are the same bike. How differently we are sitting.
No touch.
I can kind of understand why the R7 LAMS version may have not gotten as much love.
It is just really funny.
Where are we? Why does it lean so much? That doesn't lean at all. Let's do a comparison.
Fucking Yamaha.
So apparently the two bikes that I've got here are exactly the same thing, but one is just the fairing version. This is the new 2024 MT-07. This is the LAMS edition, which is the 660cc version. My R7, on the other hand, is the high output model, which is not the learner approved motorcycle. It's also been tuned, it's got the exhaust system, and I've done the air intake. And I know a lot of people have done a comparison video before, but I do want to talk about what I personally felt, what is similar and what is different. I have someone with me today to help do this comparison, and that is Rita. Rita used to own the LAMS version of the R7. We both bought our R7s back in 2022. She doesn't have that bike anymore, and we'll go into a little bit of why. And I also just took out the new 2024 LAMS R7 out yesterday with BikeBiz, so you can check out that video with BikeBiz chats. And I have some interesting feedback. I think the purpose of this video is to showcase the main differences, especially if you are looking to decide between a sports bike or a naked bike, particularly if you're a newer rider. But to start, let's do a comparison of the R7 and the MT-07. So Rita and I are the same size, wearing the same shoes, similar jeans, and we're going to show you how body positioning is so different on both bikes. Most people either prefer the naked bike or the sports bike, so they already have an image in their head. You've definitely converted to the naked bikes, but if you're someone who's tossing up between the two, maybe this video can highlight some of the key differences that often get overlooked. One thing I also noticed is the difference in seat height. On Glammy, the R7, I do have a taller tyre profile. However, I've never sat on this bike in the same position that Rita has with her foot down.
When you go to buy them brand new, the R7 tyre is going to be a lot more higher in profile than the MT, purely because the MT is meant to be a commuter and your random weekender bike, whereas the R7 is more track geared, hence why it's built the way it is.
The ergonomics and the way that you sit on the bike are completely different. So our legs are basically the same size, and holding the bike in the middle, this is what my feet look like.
I'm pretty much almost flat foot.
And we're 163 centimeters tall?
Yeah.
For me to look over my shoulder, it's actually quite hard.
And Christine is completely moving her upper body to turn around and do a head check, whereas I just need to twist my neck.
If you think about when you're braking, the bike naturally will want to
compress forward.
Yeah. I didn't notice until I rode the MT-07 how much easier it is and less daunting it is to brake from a high speed.
Wait.
I'm gonna flip this camera over.
She does a girl's something.
Oh my God, I think they recognize me. Anyway, we just got interrupted with a beautiful show, but let's continue. Yeah, I think the biggest difference I noticed when braking from a pretty decent speed on the MT-07 is I didn't feel like I was putting a lot of weight on my front wheel.
Because the handlebars on the MT is so upright and the way your arm is positioned, and when you do heavy brake, you're just pushing this way towards the bar instead of downwards like the R7. And when you push this way to brake, your body just pushes itself back like a parachute because your arms are locked, and that's just your natural body positioning when it comes to doing an emergency brake.
The other place where the handlebar positioning also comes into play is maneuvering your bike.
Slow speed maneuvers.
Yeah. It's a lot easier to do a full lock on the MT, and it feels less scary than on the R7. So if we were to full lock the handlebars to the right, Rita's body stays pretty straight.
Pretty upright. I'm still aligned, whereas Christine is hunched over.
Yeah, and I feel like I don't want to do this anymore. So that's basically what you look like sitting on the MT-07 versus the R7. Also, putting the stand down, the MT-07 seems to be more upright.
Lean, no lean.
Sports bikes, what are they actually designed for? They're not really designed to be a commuter bike overall. These bikes are designed to, you know, do your things like ride on a racetrack.
Because the rear shocks on the MT are a lot softer, and so is the front suspension, whereas the R7 has a stiffer rear and front suspensions.
I think the last key difference between the two bikes is the wind resistance. R7s and any sports bike do have a front windshield, which means when you are riding, the wind goes up in line with your helmet and past you, whereas the wind on an MT goes straight into you. I also felt very cold on the motorway on the MT-07, but then I felt very hot on the R7 in slow speed in traffic. So that's something to weigh up. I think it's really important if you're deciding between the two bikes, apart from what they're designed for, what are you going to use the bike for? If you want to head up to the racetrack at some point, there's no reason why you can't try an MT, or that you can't take the MT out. The MT will do fine, but if you want to get more serious with it, you'd probably definitely want to go for a full fairing bike of some sort. Now there's something else that I want to talk about, and it's great that we have Rita here because she has owned the R7 LAMS version, and I've ridden the R7 LAMS version now, and the bikes don't feel the same. They ride different, and I would not even think that the R7 feels like the MT-07. And I know this is kind of a challenging comparison because I do have the high output model, but overall that felt like a completely different bike that I love taking it around the streets. Honestly, this I get kind of tired after about an hour and a half of riding this around the road. I just want to keep going. I don't want to stop. This, if I have to stop and turn around, I don't really mind. Honestly guys, I could ride this MT for ages. I think I did, how many hours was it? 6 hours on the MT the other day, and I was fine. I was over it mentally, but physically I was fine. It does feel like a couch. If I got asked to do that the same amount of time on the R7, I think I would have thrown a towel at someone or water.
There you have it, guys. That's another version of an R7 versus an MT-07 comparison. I did ride the LAMS R7 the other day with BikeBiz, and I can understand why that bike doesn't get as much love as it deserves. So Glammy has been tuned. the air intake has been done. It's got a full system exhaust as well, and she is a high output model. So my experience with the R7 has probably been different to the experiences of a lot of other people. So when I took the R7 LAMS out, I was honestly a little bit shocked because when I rode the MT-07 LAMS, it didn't feel like the power delivery at lower ends were too crazy from my R7. What I did find a little bit disappointing was the R7 LAMS did feel a little less torquey, definitely less torquey than the MT-07. I don't know if that's just me, and it did feel a little bit lazy in comparison. So there is a noticeable difference between my high output R7 versus the R7 LAMS. I'll be honest guys, when I rode that new MT-07, the power delivery did feel kind of more similar to my R7. I think the time when I did notice that there was a power difference is once you're in 5th gear and you're mid-range, it starts to lack. Top end power is a little bit lower on the MT-07 LAMS. All in all, what I think both bikes need is they definitely need an exhaust. These bikes are so quiet, which is great for your ears, but not great for being heard in traffic. this isn't a recommendation, this is just my experience riding the two. I think the MT-07 was actually quite fun to ride. It was a very comfortable bike, but me being someone who loves to ride track, doesn't spend as much time on the road, loves the look of the sports bike, the R7 is definitely my preference for these two bikes. And I do have the high output model. That's my takeaway. One's a couch on wheels and one's a sled on wheels. I don't know what kind of videos I'm going to bring to this channel, but I thought this was something that I very much wanted to address, and I'm glad I did. So are these two bikes the same? Rita! For someone who's owned the R7 LAMS and has ridden the R7-HO and has ridden multiple MT-07s
And owned an MT-07. They're very different bikes. The MT, if you're a first timer who's never ridden a bike and trying to buy a bike to learn on, the MT is just so much more comfortable, so much easier to learn on. Granted, it is a bigger displacement bike than, let's say, an MT-03 or an R3. The R7 would be something for you to refine your skills if you're learning to go onto track as well. Yeah. Depends what you want out of a bike.
How the R7 LAMS felt compared to the R7-HO. Even though the displacement is only a little bit of a difference,
I wanted to sell mine after a week.
Yeah.
It's very lazy as a bike, and in order to make the most out of the LAMS R7, you're going to need to do a throttle plate, air filter, exhaust, and mind you, these mods will make the R7 LAMS non-LAMS approved.
it's definitely something that needs a little bit of work. The MT-07 LAMS though, it's, apart from being quiet, it's got a little bit, I would say it's a bit punchier.
It's very preppy.
The 2024 model anyway. I haven't ridden an older version, so I get it. The HO feels completely different to the R7 LAMS. And I think you guys out there, if you're looking for the mid-range bike that you want to ride and learn on, it's probably going to be a lot easier to master those very specific skills on the naked style bike as opposed to the R7. That would be my recommendation, but you don't have to go that way. I definitely didn't. I prefer my sports bike and I'll always be a sports bike girl. But I think if I did have a naked bike, I would have learnt a lot more skills faster and earlier on. So, which one are you riding home?
Glammy.
Knew it.
Where the fuck are we? Anyway.
He is the epitome of no fucks given.
Yeah.